Hi, good morning. My name is Menachem Creditor, and I serve as scholar in residence for UJ Federation of New York. It is Monday, and that means that we are coming together again for a little bit of song, a little bit of blessing, a little bit of learning, and to create community together. And so it is good to be able to welcome you back. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you had a restful Shabbat. Hope you managed to make it feel like Shabbat. When days blend into each other, it requires ritual and intention to bring everything back together. So, yes, all right, Steve, you get the award for starting us off. So, good morning, Jerry, Lori, Judy. This is so good. Carol and Arlene, Elise, this is amazing. Really, I know I say this often, but what an incredible thing to imagine if this weren't going on. Would we have, within the first 2 minutes of starting our workday or our life in the morning, 65 friends connecting, saying hello to each other? Dale, hi. Amy, Adrian, Barry. See, this is something special that the more we do, the more we come together on these weekdays at 9, the more clear it is to me, and I hear from many, that we should continue doing this in some way afterwards. Gail, Kim, I gotta say, there's something really precious about all of this. I see so many familiar faces and also a growing number of people I don't know. And so if you are here for your first time or you want to welcome someone who might be here for their first time, this is a great opportunity to say hello to each other. See, who knew, Felice, that we'd get someone from Jacksonville on the UJ Federation of New York Facebook page? And the answer is geography has become something quite strange. Just like intimacy, just coming together in nice, sweet spaces, is something we can do even better now than we've done before. So welcome, everybody. Let's get started with a little bit of learning. First, we'll start with a blessing for learning. Jacksonville is closer to my friend Rabbi David Paskin, who's a rabbi in Florida, who wrote the melody that we use every morning. So this is a melody for learning. It ends with the words La'asok b'divrei Torah, and I invite you all to jump in. Here we go. Sarah, it is good to see you. It's been a long time. And Sarah, you're in Boca, and Felice, you're in Jacksonville. I know that that's far apart in Florida, but who knew we'd have Floridians joining us in New York? Hopefully your weather is better than ours at the moment. I don't know who could make sense of what happened over Shabbat. It was May, and suddenly it was sheets of snow falling. This world seems to be, as my father says, pumfakert, totally upside down. Let's learn a little bit. We are still in the middle of the book of Leviticus, though we're getting toward the end. And actually, for some, that's a relief because the story begins again when we get to the book of Numbers. Leviticus is very much about rules, but those rules hold us together in ways that are essential. My teacher, Jacob Milgram, has, when he was alive, his focus really was the book of Leviticus. He spent a lot of time helping all of his students, and he was a renowned teacher, realize that the book of Leviticus is actually not at heart a book of law. He would say that it was a book of love. And it requires attention and devotion and commitment to really discerning how that's possible. But let me offer this. The rules, the structures that Leviticus offers, however foreign some of them might sound, hold a community together. There is something incredibly important about the structures of society that hold us safe. Think about what that means in our world today. Those who are rejecting the rules that are in place to keep us safe are ultimately saying, I matter more than we do. My personal hardship gives me permission to endanger someone else. Society is held together when we don't think that way. Society is held together when we recognize that the difference between what happens to me and what happens to you is simply a matter of degree and a result of mutual concern. Because if my actions can protect my neighbor, hopefully my neighbor recognizes that their actions protect me too. It's only because of this mutual covenant that we can hold together. And in this week's Torah portion, there's a covenant that actually isn't between human neighbors. It is reified. It's made real through the structures of the rules between us and God. Now, I don't know what you believe about God, and sometimes I'm not so sure myself. Many times I think that I have more in common with atheists who are comfortable being humanists in the world than I am with those who are absolutely sure they know what God wants them to do. I find that kind of certainty a little bit frightening. That's a different conversation. What I do want to say for right now is that in our double portion this week, Behar, Bechukotai, is a really interesting section where it says, as it does many times in the Torah, if you listen to my rules, says God, it'll be good. And if you don't, it won't be good. Now, that's logical, right? That's the consequence of not listening to the rules. But what's really powerful about this parsha and that model of relationship is that even though our ancestors and we barely listen, we have been described in the Torah and since as a stiff-necked people. Am kshei oref. What a really important thing to think about. That even with our resistance to structure, our disagreeable nature when it comes to being constrained, not only in this hard moment, but in general, who likes to be told what to do? God seems to have the kind of patience with us that is literally inhuman. It's just not fathomable. How is it possible to imagine being forgiven over and over and over and over again? And actually, that's what I wanted to say to all of you, and to myself maybe. Because in these moments, you and I might be very distant from each other, but if you're in your home with others, you are not distant at all. And it requires a kind of forgiveness. Because we're going to make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes over and over and over again, because after all, we're human. Now, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel taught us to be only human is to be less than human. So I actually don't want to be comfortable sitting in this current moment without growing at all. So we're not supposed to be that. We should continue to stretch and grow and feel challenged by each moment and up to the task of growing again. But what I also want to say is that we can learn from this Torah portion how to forgive each other, how to stand in the uncertainty, to recognize the frailty that each of us brings into these relationships, be it between you and the universe, you and God, you and someone in your family, you and yourself, actually. To be forgiving is an incredibly important capacity, and it isn't only based on justice. Because if it were only based on justice, what logically makes sense, every time I made a mistake, that would be it. And when I did right, well, that would be great. We can do better than that. We might not be able to channel all of God's forgiveness, but you are created in the image of God. Again, as Heschel said, a fraction of God's power at your disposal. Now, a fraction of infinite power is quite a lot, isn't it? So what if this week we decided to work on our ability to forgive? Again, yourself, someone in your family, the universe. There's a beautiful story which has an important lesson at the very end. It's Yom Kippur, and at the very end of services, you might know that we blow the shofar, this incredibly important blast that just shakes heaven and everything around. I remember being in a really small room for this once, and I felt the chairs shake. The shofar was about to be blown, and suddenly the person who was the Baal Tzedekah, who was going to blow shofar, tried, and no sound would come out. Now, the rabbi of that community was Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, famous Hasidic Rebbe. And he looked around, and he realized somehow that one person, Beryl, who was sitting in the middle of the congregation, he was the reason that the shofar sound wasn't coming out. And it seemed Beryl was deep in prayer. Finally, Beryl sort of comes out of that prayer, opens his eyes. Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev senses this is the moment, signals to the person blowing shofar, all right, now. And he blows shofar, and a huge sound comes out, a pure blast of the shofar. Yom Kippur is over, and Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev goes to Beryl and says, Beryl, my friend, tell me, somehow I knew this was wrapped up in whatever your prayer contained. What was happening for you? And Reb Levi heard from Beryl a lesson we might all learn. It requires courage to embody this lesson. Beryl said, I was having a conversation with God, Rabbi. And I said, listen, I haven't been my best self all year long. I've made so many mistakes. But I said, Master of the Universe, this world hasn't had a good year either. There has been illness, there has been poverty, many things that aren't fair have happened in this world. So I'll tell you what, God, I'll make a deal. You forgive me, I'll forgive you. And Reb Levi took Beryl by the shoulders and said, you fool, you could have brought the Messiah. So think for a moment about what your forgiveness could achieve, and what holding each other accountable to forgiveness might achieve. As David says really beautifully right here, practicing forgiveness is always a wonderful and sometimes difficult lesson. It goes hand in hand with practicing empathy. So let's have empathy for each other. For yourself, really, that's a really important dimension of this. For your neighbors, for your family, for the universe. And maybe what we'll do by having empathy, and by teaching empathy, and modeling empathy, is we will help neighbors all across America and perhaps the world recognize that we are obligated to protect each other by imagining that we stand in each other's position. You can't, actually. Empathy is a beautiful practice, but to grant dignity to my neighbors, to know that I truly can't understand their circumstance. But I know they have a circumstance. I know that they probably are hurting or feeling alone or challenged. So I do too. I'm looking out and I see people walking. 3 months ago, if I had looked out my window and seen someone walking by with a mask, I wouldn't have understood. But I also know that when I look out the window and I see someone walking down the street and they're wearing a mask, I can't see their face and I don't understand. I can empathize. But I'm imagining the world they deserve, and holding on to my dreams for a world that our children deserve and that we each deserve. So let's not let the universe off the hook, but let's be really gentle as we make our ways forward. So may you be blessed today and tomorrow. May we be blessed very soon to stand near each other. Maybe cry a little bit, understand a little bit more about each other, and have deep empathy and recommit towards building a community that knows that we owe each other so much. We are mutually obligated. And when we fall short, let's forgive each other quickly so we can get back to the work of building up our communities. So thank you for being with us every weekday, 9 o'clock, right here. And thank you for helping me find purpose too. You might not realize the big gift that simply being together grants teachers. So thank you. Let's sing our way out, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And wherever you are, sing. Here we go. Good morning, Glory. Ya la 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 la, diddy ya la la la, diddy ya la la la, ay ya la la la. Nice step. Ya la 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 la, diddy ya la la la, diddy ya la la la, ay ya la la la. Boker Tov, everyone. Take care. Can't wait to see you soon. Bye-bye.